got people that are resentful towards her. But it's really not about her, guys. It's about what she represents.
7 of the Civil Rights Act, the federal government does have an ability to engage.
To be clear, Caitlin Clark is being fouled at a record rate. Some of them are brutal fouls, and a lot of the refs are looking the other way.
Fortunately, it's creating a textbook hostile work environment for Caitlin Clark, and under Title.
The WNBA's biggest star, Caitlin Clark, just delivered the most devastating news of the season, and it lays bare a truth the league desperately tried to bury. After relentless physical assaults, a shocking lack of protection, and an undeniable campaign of disrespect, league insiders confirm she is now officially sidelined for the remainder of the season. The player who single-handedly reshaped women's basketball is stepping away, not because she's unable to compete, but because the WNBA leadership utterly failed to safeguard its most valuable asset. This isn't just an injury, it's an indictment of the league's priorities and its blatant disregard for its own growth.
But despite all that success that she's immediately had, the league has basically looked the other way as she's been targeted on a weekly basis.
Remember the seismic shift when Caitlin Clark declared for the draft? The Indiana Fever's immediate signing wasn't just a roster move, it was a detonation. Suddenly, the WNBA found itself catapulted into an unprecedented media spotlight it had never remotely experienced. We've seen impactful rookies before, yes, but nothing on this scale. She wasn't merely a player, she instantly became the undisputed face of the league, its financial engine, its golden ticket to mainstream relevance. Her arrival transcended basketball, becoming a cultural phenomenon.
Okay, because she's brilliant, right? That's why she's wreaking havoc. Because she is so...
And the raw data confirms the eruption, screaming a narrative louder than any headline could. The WNBA app, a digital ghost town for most, saw engagement skyrocket by an astonishing 613% the moment Clark's name entered the conversation. Paid subscriptions? Those surged by 366%, indicating a dramatic new willingness for fans to invest in the league. Merchandise sales defied belief, exploding by an eye-watering 610%. Everyone, it seemed, wanted a piece of Caitlin's jersey. But the most staggering revelation? The Indiana Fever's franchise value tripled, transforming a practically invisible team into a major economic force, all because of one player.
For attention about Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark has had a seismic impact on the WNBA ever since she first joined. Merchandise sales.
You'd assume such a monumental, league-altering talent would be celebrated with fanfare, perhaps even enshrined for her contributions. Instead, her meteoric rise unleashed an unparalleled storm of controversy and resentment within the league itself. Why, when she started eclipsing even 3-time MVP Aja Wilson in attention, did the WNBA appear to descend into a silent panic? The truth, as sources close to the situation reveal, is far more complex than simple competition. It immediately shifted from a discussion about basketball to a powder keg of politics, entrenched egos, and simmering envy.
Right after she was drafted and heading into her rookie year, Aja Wilson, who is a 3-time MVP of the league, she's won the championship for the Las Vegas Aces, she came out and addressed the attention that Caitlin Clark is.
Make no mistake, Caitlin Clark never sought this volatile drama. Her sole intention was to play the game she loved. But the instant her image graced every highlight reel and national broadcast, the unspoken rules of the league seemed to unravel. The ensuing backlash wasn't subtle, it wasn't professional, and insiders confirmed it was anything but safe, and now the bombshell, she's stepping away. This isn't a retirement or a sign of decline, it's the direct consequence of a player being relentlessly battered on the court and systemically burnt out off it.
It boils her blood when people try and say that it's not about race. And so, unfortunately, it seems like there's a lot of commentary that's being made by players when they're on camera and they know reporters are watching.
Let's dissect the numbers again, because if the emotional turmoil felt personal, the statistics provide undeniable evidence of a deliberate pattern. Caitlin Clark alone absorbed 17% of all flagrant and hard fouls across the entire WNBA season. Pause and consider the sheer absurdity of that figure. A single player accounting for nearly a fifth of the league's most egregious physical infractions. What's even more damning, this percentage is more than double that of the next closest player. That's not merely aggressive play. It's a clear, statistically significant pattern of targeting.
She is taking on harder fouls and at a higher rate than any of her peers. So it turns out that in her rookie season, she absorbed 17% of all flagrant fouls, or hard fouls.
These weren't accidental bumps or incidental contact either. We're talking about mid-air collisions, blindsided shoulder checks, and hits typically reserved for a rugby scrum, not a basketball court. And as Clark endured these brutal impacts almost every game, the referees, astonishingly, seemed to adopt a role of disinterested spectators. Viral video after viral video documented her being fouled repeatedly, sometimes 3 or 4 times within a single possession, only for officials to stand by, seemingly oblivious to their primary duty.
More than double the rate of any of her peers. This is not something that you would see occur to any other top star in any other league. And I think a lot of fans are scratching their heads of why the league is allowing this to continue.
And perhaps the most infuriating detail, not a single player faced suspension for these flagrant assaults. It made no difference how blatant the foul was, how many slow-motion replays captured the brutality, or how loudly the crowd gasped in disbelief. The league offered no accountability, simply shrugging off the escalating violence. How can anyone possibly justify such inaction? One prominent analyst who wished to remain anonymous bluntly stated it. She's one flagrant away from a career-ending injury, and now we are left grappling with the grim reality of that prediction.
There's a lot of jealousy and animosity, and that can be understood, right? If you've been a VP of the league in the past, yet you were unable to achieve the...
But here's where the narrative veers into far more contentious territory. This entire fiasco isn't just about egregious fouls or intense on-court rivalries. Reports from within the league confirm it runs far deeper. Audra Wilson, a cornerstone of the WNBA, didn't mince words when she stated, "Race is a huge thing. It boils my blood when people say it's not." That's a 3-time MVP, speaking with unfiltered candor, undeniably connecting the on-court aggression to underlying racial tensions. Suddenly it becomes clear, Clark wasn't just enduring physical hits, she was inadvertently carrying the immense weight of a cultural divide she never asked to be a part of.
Unable to achieve the visibility and perhaps the endorsements that Caitlin Clark has received right out of the gate, it shows that it's normal to assume that there would be some degree of resentment. However, the concern is that resentment is then leading to targeting on the court.
Insiders reveal that a segment of veteran black players who have dedicated years to the league without the significant media attention, endorsement deals, or national recognition now afforded to Clark harbor understandable frustration. Their annoyance at a white rookie instantly commanding the spotlight they've long craved is palpable. And while that frustration is valid, when it undeniably translates into calculated on-court retaliation and a demonstrable pattern of negligence, we are no longer discussing mere competitive spirit. This is a systemic issue demanding immediate accountability.
Because Ms. Clark's civil rights are being violated as she is targeted on the court, the basketball court, and no one's protecting her. Is that what you're saying?
It's crucial to remember that Clark herself remains silent on the racial aspect, never pointing fingers or playing the victim. Yet the moment she became the undisputed face of the league, a deep-seated resentment apparently solidified, and a clear correlation between that animosity and her escalating foul count emerged. She effectively became the unwitting scapegoat for decades of perceived oversight regarding black talent within the league. While a critical dialogue about equity and recognition is absolutely necessary, it should never, under any circumstances, be settled with cheap shots and elbows on the hardwood.
That is the weirdest thing in the world, but it is what it is, and I'm glad that Caitlin has a great head on her shoulders.
Even her own teammate, Sophie Cunningham, offered a stark admission that spoke volumes. The star player of the league is not being protected, she publicly declared. A damning indictment coming not from opponents or outside critics, but from within her own locker room. When a player is subjected to weekly assaults, and the governing body does nothing to intervene, it ceases to be a mere game. It transforms into a demonstrable pattern of negligence that legal experts warn is quite literally a lawsuit waiting to explode.
It's basically done for the WNBA what Michael Jordan did for...
From a legal standpoint, the WNBA finds itself in textbook hostile work environment territory. Under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, proving racial discrimination doesn't require overt slurs. A pattern of unequal treatment and documented negligence, especially when disproportionately applied to one individual, is more than sufficient. Should this situation escalate to court, the WNBA leadership will be forced to explain under oath how their most economically valuable player was permitted to be targeted and physically abused without any meaningful intervention or disciplinary action.
Warning call.
And the amount Caitlin Clark is being fouled compared to any of her peers in the league or the treatment that she receives compared to any other top stars in any other leagues, there's no comparison to it.
And because of this entire egregious failure of leadership and protection, we now stand at this grim precipice. Caitlin Clark, the singular reason a significant portion of the country has re-engaged with the WNBA, is out for the season. She entered the league simply to play basketball, shattered every rookie marketing benchmark imaginable, yet found herself not only physically battered on the court, but politically isolated off it. She is undeniably hurt, deeply frustrated, and likely grappling with profound questions about the true cost of her extraordinary talent.
Instead of protecting its transformative star, the league's leadership ignores the relentless targeting of Miss Clark, treating its greatest asset as if she were a PR headache.
The Wall Street Journal, a publication not prone to hyperbole, didn't pull any punches. Their recent reporting unequivocally stated that the WNBA is sitting on a civil rights lawsuit ready to erupt at any moment. This isn't mere speculation or a whispered rumor, it's a legal time bomb ticking louder with every ignored foul, every questionable non-call that targeted Clark. The league's leadership is now squarely in the legal hot seat, whether they acknowledge it or not. The concept of physicality has been stretched to its breaking point.
Very obviously ratcheted down.
Let's be brutally honest. This transcends the realm of mere bad officiating. What we're witnessing is a pattern of behavior that screams discrimination from the highest rafters. Recall Harris v. Forklift Systems from 1993. The landmark case that unequivocally established a hostile work environment doesn't require a physical punch to count. It merely requires repeated, demeaning behavior that creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive atmosphere, making an employee feel degraded every single day they clock in. Does any of that sound uncomfortably familiar in Clark's situation?
What she represents. Before she ever came along, there were a lot of outstanding basketball players who happened to be black females.
Furthermore, consider Toussaint v. Texas Department of Community Affairs, a case that fundamentally shifted the burden of proof onto the employer once unequal treatment can be demonstrably shown. Caitlin Clark's situation provides this proof on a silver platter. We've already established, with irrefutable data, that she's absorbed double the flagrant fouls of any other player in the entire league. This isn't conjecture, it's cold, hard, mathematical evidence. How will the league defend this glaring disparity?
Maybe Caitlin Clark's civil rights are actually being violated. Is her right to a peaceful workplace, a non-hostile work environment, are those rights being violated?
And it regrettably deteriorates further. We have recorded public comments, actual words caught on camera from players explicitly introducing race into the discourse surrounding Clark. We have Sophie Cunningham's damning admission that Clark was clearly unprotected. We have Aja Wilson articulating her profound anger about the racial implications. This isn't subtle, it's direct, undeniable evidence. The most damning revelation? Leaked internal chatter reportedly suggests that referees were given implicit instructions to let them play, even if it meant Clark was subjected to an unprecedented level of physical abuse. Is the league truly content to look away while its most marketable star is targeted?
And so she's facing a hostile work environment. Unfortunately, it appears that it does impact a protected class, her race, as evidenced by quotes by players in the league. And there is a federal element here to where the government can intervene, and we've already seen this.
Now the Department of Justice is reportedly sniffing around. The Labor Department is scrutinizing league policies, and even Congress has begun to wade into this escalating crisis. Workplace safety regulations, discrimination laws, all are now directly in play. You know the situation has spiraled when federal institutions are being mentioned in the same breath as layups and fouls. Senator Jim Banks has already dispatched a formal letter to Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, not politely asking for answers, but outright demanding them. If that doesn't signal the WNBA's PR team is in full panic mode, nothing will. Once lawmakers probe a league's internal policies, it morphs into a full-blown legal, political, and financial nightmare.
Time race has really gotten to this level. Why do you think the referees don't protect her more?
I think that's a great question. And I think the one key that, the 17% of flagrant fouls that she receives versus others, that's just based on calls that have actually been, that the referees actually call.
Yet, despite this swirling chaos and the undeniable evidence of systemic failure, the mainstream media has largely remained perplexingly silent. Where are the in-depth think pieces, the network specials dissecting this unprecedented situation? Consider this. Caitlin Clark, the player single-handedly driving league viewership and the undisputed #1 ticket seller across the WNBA, was inexplicably snubbed from the USA Olympic team. How does the player responsible for unprecedented growth somehow fail to make the cut for the national squad? The decision defies all logical explanation.
Doesn't get to play under these circumstances, where these girls are just going out there and playing basketball.
The immediate fallout from the Olympic snub was painfully clear. The WNBA All-Star Game, which should have been a triumphant celebration of the league's newfound popularity, saw its ratings plummet by a staggering 55%. This isn't a mere coincidence, it's a direct consequence. It's what happens when fans realize the very player they tuned in to see isn't going to be present. You sideline Clark, and the clear message from the fan base is, if she's not playing, we're out too.
Clark shattered fan vote records with 1.29 million All-Star votes, yet ranked only 9th among guards on the player ballot.
Even some team owners have joined the peculiar effort to downplay Clark's impact. Sheila Johnson, owner of the Mystics, casually suggested other players might deserve the spotlight more, a truly perplexing sentiment from an owner who directly benefits from league-wide growth. You'd think an executive with a vested financial interest would vigorously protect the player responsible for generating that very growth. But instead, it appears politics and established hierarchies are prioritized. This isn't merely about media blackouts or Olympic snubs, it's the profound emotional toll on the player herself. Caitlin Clark spoke out directly, stating, "They get away with things they wouldn't do to others. That's not a fan blog or a teammate's opinion. That's from the individual enduring the elbows to the ribs and the mid-air slams while everyone watches as if it's some twisted spectacle. If this shocking truth has opened your eyes, hit subscribe. We are far from finished exposing the deep-seated issues behind the game.